me than bowing down to what the leadership is interested in having you vote on.
Thank you. And speaking of leadership, this question was just put forth here. It says Representative Gillen, so they're listening. Yeah, this is live. Representative Gillen said that their 50% increase for state pensions and 25% increase for teachers' pensions. Those increases caused most of the problem. But no one said anything about cutting them back. And then it says the point being, if legislators can raise their pensions by law, why can't they pass a law to reduce them?
This is 3 in a row. This is my question. Act 120 did actually reduce the multiplier. Jerry mentioned that. It increased the vestment period of time. You've got to be older in order to retire. Your compensation is going to be less. The savings, in my view, were substantial, but probably insufficient to create solvency in the actual system. Now, we've got some case law, frankly, that's being looked at right now. We have some court decisions that have come down in Illinois and Oregon and other places. What has been proposed in the Senate is being studied very carefully in the legal community to determine whether it's been constitutional, whether it's constitutional or not. And frankly, I will do whatever it takes to create solvency for the taxpayer. But if part of this answer lies in pension obligation bonds, and if part of this answer lies in increasing taxes, I'm heading for the exits because I'm not going to be part of any such plan.
Thank you very much. And one last thing on pensions, because there's a lot of other topics. The part of the issue is how it's invested, and there's a bill to address who makes those decisions. And Beth Ann Mumford looked it up. What is the number?
Representative Durham's bill is House Bill 845.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on from that and let's look at property taxes. House Bill 845, you got that? Property taxes, what bill is that? Anybody here know? I'm guessing you do.
Yeah, I bet you it's 76.
Oh, right. Ding, 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 ding. Representative Knowles gets that answer. Okay, let's look at the budget that is being proposed. The governor, in this proposal, has proposed property tax relief measures, while at the same time allowing school boards to continue to raise property taxes. That was done by the last governor and is being proposed this time as well. The new budget is seeing, what they're saying will be a reduction in property taxes from $3.6 to $3.8 billion property tax reduction. And that is because the personal income tax is rising 21% from 3.07 to 3.7%. Sales tax is going up 10% to 6.6%. Again, these are proposed numbers. Considering any bills other than Senate Bill, House Bill 76, what assurance is there that the property taxes will not ratchet back up to current levels, because it is not a complete reduction? And while there is a $3.6 to $3.8 billion property tax reduction, there's also $6.2 billion in new taxes. So you're getting less than half back of what you're paying.
Before the gentleman arrived, it was mentioned about Stan Saylor's amendment. That was a very, very critical vote. We all voted for it. There were 2 in our delegation.
Can you be specific? What amendment?
It was 830, and basically 860, and basically what it did was reduce. It was similar to 76.
Yep.
This was a trial vote.
Yep.
It was 109 in favor, 33 Democrats and 76 Republicans. That was very, very, very critical. That's the first time we've had an actual solid vote to increase income and sales tax to start to eliminate school district property tax.
Therein lies the rub. It starts to eliminate, not eliminate.
Well, it was a test vote.
Okay.
And it got through, and it got through the final passage of the bill. It was 105 to whatever the 80 number was. Went over to the Senate. Now, I talked to Senator Argyle, and and that was today, what he's planning to do is amend that bill with Senate Bill 76. If that happens, and they can pass it in the Senate, and I'm assured they have the votes to do that, it'll go back to the House on concurrence. And I know all of us in the Berks delegation are in favor of that.
How
Just
would
give us
that
a
be
chance.
incorporated into the budget? Can it be? That's the next step. How does that work?
Yeah, you know, one of the things that needs to be noted here, the governor is the kind of guy you'd like to have a coffee with, but he scares the living hell out of me because he's a very likable guy. You can't help but like him, but he's very slick. He's a slick guy. He invited us over to the mansion, and we all sat around and had a coffee with him, and he said, I'm here what's on your mind? What's important to your constituents? And we're spilling our guts, telling them about House Bill, Senate Bill 76, telling them about the conservative issues. And when he was giving his budget address, I leaned over to the guy next to me and I said, we wrote that speech. He put everything in it that we talked about. And he put property tax in it because he knows how important it is to some of us. But the difference between what he wants to do and House Bill 860, what he wants to do is he's talking about increasing the sales tax from 6 to 6.6, and then he's talking about going from 3.07 to 3.7. But what he fails to tell you is that only about 30% of those dollars are going to go towards reduction of property tax. The other 60 or 70 are going to go for new spending. So the difference is House Bill 860, it will reduce, they're throwing the figure around the 50%, and it would be the 3.07 to 3.7, it would be 6 to 7, but there's no expanding the base. The base would stay, there would be no, there would be no further things that would be taxable. But I want to tell you why I voted for that bill. And Mark and Tom will tell you, if it had not been for the Berks delegation, that bill would have failed. And some people we were very concerned because we said, our people want property tax elimination. They don't want reduction because they're scared that down the road, that property tax, that school property tax is going to continue to go up.
There's the key right there, if I might interrupt. What assurance is in this budget or this bill, the budget is proposed or the bill, that says, okay, we're going to reduce your property taxes by X number of dollars, and what's in place to keep the school districts from implementing an increase?
You know, I'll give Mark.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like you to see our vote, which was 105, as a vehicle to continue the process, all right? Imperfect. David Baldinger said this is not bad news for House Bill or Senate Bill 76. I think everybody's familiar with David. I spoke to David before the vote. Because it did not extinguish the school district's school director's property tax raising ability, I was concerned. I will not vote for a finished product unless it eliminates the school board's taxing ability and actually permanently slays the beast. Now,
Can I ask you why you're on that? These bills you're talking about, so it was a step in the right direction.
David Baldinger said this, it is, and I have a sheet in the back with these exact quotes. There's 200 of them. He said, and I quote, "It is merely another step in the process. Please do not beat up on any House Bill 76 supporters in the House who voted for the Saylor bill. We went to leadership. Had that vote not come out of the House, the three of us don't vote for it, and one other person in Berks County." Think of it this way. Jim Cox, who authored property tax elimination, HB 76, realized, as well as the rest of us, we had to make a tactical vote to keep this thing alive. If that vote failed in the House, it's done, and that's the voice of the leader. That's the voice of the man who controls the legislative calendar, said, we're finished with it and we're moving on. It is our desire that our property tax elimination bill, SB 76, on the other side of the aisle, will be amended into the product that we send them. And so, folks, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'm not interested in renting or leasing or having a timeshare with the government of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There's only one solution to this problem, and it's freedom-based. It is the consummate elimination of the school-based property tax.
So I'm hearing from all three of you
If I may
that it's
just-
not a done deal. This could be incorporated into the budget.
Every Democratic leader in the House voted for the Saylor Amendment.
Okay.
And as I recall, and I could be wrong, but as I recall, I think the Speaker of the House voted no. So, you know, it's a split House. Forget the politics, it's the issue. And we stuck together on that. And I do believe that if it comes up in the Senate, that they will have the votes to get it amended for total elimination. That's what the vehicle hopefully can be then put into the budget, because
That's
that's
what
going to
I'm
be part
trying
of
to
it.
hear, is it? Okay.
Yeah,
That's,
and I gotta admit, I was the last man standing. I was gonna vote against it, and my colleagues convinced me that, but I want you to think about something. I want you to think about a tough decision that is, okay? Because if you vote for House Bill 860, you got one group saying, we want elimination and you're just reducing, and they get upset with you. And then if you vote against it, then they say, oh yeah, he wants to vote to increase our sales tax and our personal income tax. He wants to. So it is, but it was a calculated decision, and all of us talked, and we felt that the only way, and Jim Cox came to me and said, the only way that we keep Senate Bill, House Bill 76 alive is to vote for this bill and get it over to the Senate. If we had voted against it, if the Burke delegation had voted against it, it would have been dead, and we wouldn't hear any more about property tax.
Last line from David Baldinger: it was necessary to move the discussion forward, that particular vote that we made, and despite their reservations, they did the right thing.
thank you very much. We have some clarification on that school tax bill. A question from the audience. If a law passes raising income tax and sales tax without eliminating property tax, what's going to stop the legislature from raising all three whenever they decide they want more money?
I will not support that. I mean, the goal, you know, the way the governor's proposing it, and that's not going to happen. I mean, we'll see with the budget that comes on from Bill Adolph in the House, that it's going to be completely different. And then, of course, when it gets over to the Senate, they'll tinker with it, and it'll be a conference committee, which will
I think the question is in the future. Like, say this passes this time, how do you prevent the legislature down the road? And nobody has a crystal ball, but how do you prevent that from happening?
You got to elect people that are going to keep their word and stay the course. I mean, it's going to be up to people like you. We're not going to be around forever in these positions. There's going to be new members in the General Assembly, and if we do finally vote to eliminate it, put a provision in there that if they ever want to put it back in there again, it has to be a statewide vote. I mean, there are things you could put in there that could ever prevent that from happening, and say, if you ever want to go back to the school district property tax, it has to be voted on statewide.
Yeah, if I can, just real quickly, I want to tell you about how passionate I am about, we've got to eliminate school property taxes. I introduced an amendment to that House bill, and the amendment was that you could not raise the property tax without a referendum. It would have to be a referendum. In this case, each school district, there would have to be a referendum. And it went down in flames, but the purpose was to drive the message, and that is elimination, not reduction.
See, that's the point that I was making, similar to what Jerry was saying. If you put that language into the bill, both 76s, that the only way would be a statewide vote to redo the local property tax, then it's up to the taxpayers. And I kind of doubt they'd ever want to do that again.
I don't think so. This has been an ongoing issue, and actually an issue that was born here in Berks County. If you travel across the state, there's not nearly the passion for property tax elimination. So let's turn our attention to Beth Ann Rumford and give us some insight as to, across the state, from Americans for Prosperity, why would there be any resistance to this?
To
House Bill 76, eliminating
property tax? Yeah, Berks County is a hotbed of issues surrounding property taxes. The property taxes are implemented by school districts, and not all the school districts have made the same decisions that the school districts here have. So it's not an issue all over the state, which I know is talked about quite a bit for folks where it definitely is an issue. But I wanted to point out, just recently in Michigan, the legislature put before the voters a transportation tax. And on a referendum, it failed 80% to 20%. So this idea of this existing legislature cannot tie the hands of a future legislature. So to your point, ultimately, depending on what happens, especially with the bill that was passed by the House, 504, with Stan Saylor's language, there isn't anything that really fundamentally can limit school districts or the legislature, school districts from raising the property tax again, or a legislature in the future saying, we need the money to fill a budget gap, so we're not going to send that money back into the school districts to reduce property tax. So that's just reality on the language that's here today that we're looking at. So the idea that at least voters can determine for themselves whether or not they want those taxes to go up in the future is fundamentally the right approach, I would say.
So it's up to, again, being re-engaged voting constituency, and it's very cool that you guys are spending your evening here and listening to this and participating in this, and hopefully you can take that home and get more people next time.
And not everybody does this work that you guys do. I mean, to the question about how do you limit corruption, they're absolutely right. I mean, if you're not there to hold them accountable, groups like AFB, groups like you, to hold lawmakers accountable, it is very easy to make bad decisions in Harrisburg. Because you're negotiating with people within Harrisburg, and that's a very different pot than the rest of us who operate out in the economy and out in the communities. So making sure that you're always talking to your legislators helps keep them connected to what's important to you. But that doesn't happen everywhere. So one of the things that we work on is really getting people engaged at that grassroots level, because that's the way to make sure bad things don't happen.
Thank you very much. There's a lot of topics here. We're going to sneak this one in because it's from the audience and you came out, so I want to get to your questions. And there's a number of questions here about welfare, so we want to go to those. But first, is there really a possibility of our legislative body shrinking in numbers? We have one of the largest legislative bodies in the nation.
Yeah, I think I should take that one. House Bill 153 is I'm the prime sponsor, and it deals with the House of Representatives. It would reduce the House of Representatives. Originally, it was to be reduced from 203 to 153. It was amended in committee, and it was changed from 153 to 151. I won't go into the long story, but there's a crazy story about that in terms of why they went from 153 to 151. But what I will say is, this is not an easy process. It passed the House. It goes over to the Senate. If it passes the Senate, then it needs to get advertised in a paper. I think it's one paper per county. And then in the next session, again, it needs to pass the House, it needs to pass the Senate, and then here's the important thing. It goes on the ballot as a referendum so that you, the people that pay the bills, get to make the ultimate decision.
Will that mandate redistricting by default if it would pass? You'd have to redistrict?
No, they would probably get, from what I'm gathering, it would take effect in the next reapportionment in 2020. But it's still, I mean, we've got legislators that introduce legislation to reduce the size of the legislature over the course of 50 years. I mean, come on, let's do it, let's get it done. We got